Hi, this is Dr. Mark Sehl from the YouTube channel Therapy for the Heart, and this is a 76th video, and most unusual relationship between patient and analyst. That's my talk today. Before I forget, I wanted to say how much I enjoyed that talk by Dr. Ornstein, over the weekend, and how many people there were familiar with Dr. Marjorie Taggart-White, who supervised me for many years with a very difficult patient. So many people acknowledged knowing her. A lot of colleagues there, so that was very nice. I haven't really met with them much, except for hearing and seeing them at different conferences along the way. But it was nice to see you all. Thanks a lot. And Dr. Ornstein has made such a contribution to the mental health field and psychoanalysis. So today, May 8th, 3 years ago, Dr. Gerry Lucas died. And so I'm talking today on his anniversary of that death, May 8th, 2015. Dr. Lucas was an interesting person, to say the least. He was his own man, and I was with him for about 21 years, starting back in 1995. He led a group at his brownstone on 87th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam. And I liked what he had to say about life, about doing treatment, about how he was as a person, because he was very open to hear what people had to say in the group. We had a transference resistance group, and as part of our training there, now, I wasn't formally training, but I took the course. He had an Institute for Modern Psychoanalysis that he created after he left the Center for Modern Psychoanalytic Studies. He was one of the first graduates there, and he wanted to do his own thing, so he set his own training program. So I took videos of him. He was my analyst at the time, and I took videos of him in terms of his work, where he lived, how he met his wife. You might ask, why did I do that? Because my purpose in the psychotherapy YouTube videos was to bring modern psychoanalysis to the forefront of people's minds, let them know that it was existing, what it was all about, how it was different from classical psychoanalysis. And also I wanted to put Dr. Lucas on the map. He didn't do too much talking in lectures around. He did some, but I thought he might like that. And I asked him if he would like that, and he said yes. So we took some videos from 2012 to 2015. So unusual relationship. He was a mentor, supervisor, trainer, a man of his own thinking. He was very close to Dr. Spotnitz in terms of learning and teaching. I think Dr. Spotnitz encouraged him to go to the CMPS. And, so a little history of him. He was he liked to put at the top of his resume before anything else, academic credentials. He put that he enlisted in the army at 17 years of age to fight Hitler. So he was a man of courage. There's two twin imperatives. Someone wrote about him, twin imperatives, courage and tact, and that certainly had a lot of tact. And he wrote an essay about that. So he went into the army, and then after the Battle of the Bulge, he came back, and his comment was, what kept him safe was that he was reading a lot in the bunkers, so he had his head down. Yeah, so he was a courageous man, very courageous. So I studied with him, transference resistance group, theory of modern psychoanalysis, Spotnitz's book, and supervision. A lot of people in his class, a lot of them came up from Philadelphia, a contingent that saw him regularly for years and years and years. He was different in the sense that, I had trained at Washington Square Institute with Trudy and Ruben Blank. I trained at I was training at IPTAR, which was very good in embedding me in the classical theory. Margaret Ray, Alma Bond, Joe Reppin were some of the people that were very influential in my thinking. And also Trudy and Ruben. I had ego psychology. So, but Gerry had some things like he did differently. Maybe everybody did them, or some people did them. But this was the age of the MacArthur era, and many people were paranoid about being spied on, and so if a patient was very paranoid, he would say, "Well, let's talk outside while we walk." So he would walk from his brownstone over to Central Park, around, back again. He's the innovator. He was. They did telephone therapy at that time. I think the modern analysts were a little bit ahead of the time in that, with that, what's very popular now. But it's talk therapy, so why not? As a matter of fact, he referred me a patient later on who was not able to find a good analyst in. It was New Hampshire. So I talked to this person. I never met him, and I talked to him on the phone, and he had a drinking problem. So in a year and a half, he resolved his drinking problem, and he stopped drinking completely. He hadn't been in a relationship for a long time, so he got into a relationship and stayed there. And also he had a transference to me that was related to his relationship with his father, and talking about that helped him a lot too. So as long as you can talk, talking therapy. And I do phone work. I've done a lot of it. So, yeah, so anyway, those are interesting, different things that weren't. And also, he would see people every other week sometimes. And back in the day like that, if I said something like that, I think maybe to one of the more conservative circles, I don't know how it would go over. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but I didn't happen to say that because they didn't come up in those circles. And I think, some people say, well, how can you treat somebody every other week? Or how can you treat somebody once a week? So Spotnitz's idea, and also Dr. Lucas, was that if you come too often, it can be too stimulating for the patient. And that makes sense to me. Too stimulating for the patient and overwhelming. So that's the reason we would not recommend. Well, first of all, I think he taught us, don't recommend anything. Ask the patient how often they would come. That was a neat idea for me. Ask them how, and then you get some sense. If they say once every 2 weeks or once a month or, 3 times a week, you get some sense just of that person where they are, just by asking them rather than having a formula for what you think is the best classical treatment. And, Spotnitz, he had an idea that many people he treated in the 50s, they didn't have an object transference like you are required to have if you're going to do a psychoanalysis, at least in those days. So he said, as long as they can talk, and you can help them talk, and they have a transference which is not an object but a narcissistic transference, and you can work with them. And that's what he firmly believed in. So, and we learned a lot about the narcissistic transference in my studying with Lucas. So that was what I was missing, and it was unique to me in the sense of the classical stance and tradition. That's all. Not that I didn't get something from that. That was a good foundation, but then I branched off and wanted to look at other things. So. I like that when he said that he was kept his head down and he read a lot. I couldn't conceive of him reading. Maybe he was exaggerating on that about other bullets. Maybe not. I don't know. He wasn't a person to fabricate things. So when I heard that about him, this was in his obituary. That was it just put a smile on my face. So his training, after CMPS, before CMPS, he got a BA in physics, PhD in Columbia University. He had lectured at City College, faculty of New School, and also adjunct faculty at Baruch College, in addition to other things that he was doing in terms of psychoanalysis and training people. So, I set up the videos again. So I said modern psychoanalysis. I wanted to introduce it, and he was a modern psychoanalyst. So there we go. So I took videos of him. And he talked about how he met his wife, Marie. He met his wife, yes, and also he talked about how he met his wife's mother. That was a challenge because he was Jewish and she was Irish Catholic. So he went over there and he said, when he was meeting with her, he said, by the way, would you like to have a drink with me? And she turned that down. And then another time he said, would you like to have a drink with me? And not that time. So the last time he asked, would you like to have a drink with me? She says, oh, well, I'll have a wee bit. And after that, that was cool between with him and Marie, and he got married and lived together with Marie for 50 years, I guess, married. He had 3 children, 1 girl, 2 girls and a boy. 1 dentist, 1 doctor, and I'm not sure what the other one, what she was doing, but that doesn't matter. He just raised a family. Plus all of the other things that he did, and also like we all have to do, raise a family, study psychoanalysis, go to school, right? It's a big job. So the videos, there was another one he said about how he grew up in Brooklyn. And he said in Brooklyn, he was in a Jewish community, but also there were Italians around in the outlying areas, so they could get on your case about anything. So he went into somebody's kid's house one time, and the kid saw him there, second time, third time, who are you? And then all of a sudden the kid punched him in the nose. Dr. Lucas ran home to his mommy. He said, Mommy, I didn't. And he was crying, and his mother said, I'm sorry that happened. So he's very empathetic with him. But she said, you know what I want you to do? I want you to go the next day, go over there and find him and punch him back in the nose. So he didn't want to do that. He's bigger than me, but he did do it. He punched him in the nose, and then the kid told his father, and the father brought the kid over to Marie's house, and what your son punched my son in the nose. Oh, that was only the half the story, Dr. Lucas said to him. He says, oh, your son punched my son in the nose first. So I enjoy his stories about a lot of different things. So those are on the videos. If you ever want to look at the videos, you go to marksehl.com, and there's a pull-down menu, and you can just click that, and you can see all the list of videos. There's a whole playlist of his own, devoted to his own, talking about himself and not with me and interviewing with him. So he began to lose his memory. I noticed that maybe back in 2012. I wasn't sure, but I asked one time in an interview, one of the first interviews I did with him, and I asked him, how long have you lived here, Dr. Lucas? And he said, oh, God only knows. So I thought, I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I caught on that maybe he wasn't so swift in his memory, or I don't know, but that stuck in my mind. I said, oh, maybe later on, maybe that was a way he was, covering up some knowledge he had that, he was, people could recognize, and he could recognize that. So, but it was only until months later, not months, maybe 2 months later, he became much more seriously impaired in terms of his functioning with cognition, and it eventually, he really wasn't able to function with me as a psychoanalyst. He just wasn't able to, and I was curious about whether he was going to say something about that or not. Whether he would terminate the treatment, and it's an interesting question, maybe even for a part of a conference. What would you do if this kind of situation happened? He didn't say anything. He left it up to me to bring it up. And there's something about that I liked. I can't tell you why, really. I haven't thought about it. I'd like to think about it more. But I liked that he left it up to me, like it was going to be my decision. So anyway, I did decide to tell him that I wouldn't be able to continue with him because he's not able to function the way he was functioning before. And I noted that he tended to fall asleep sometimes, and I have to turn around and wake him up. And I could tolerate that a little bit, but it was too much to tolerate too. And I tried it for about a month. I wanted to give him a break, So if you wanted to take a nap, take a nap. So I didn't want to and I felt a little bit awkward about telling him too. But I told him eventually. So we stopped treatment, and he had during one of the times that he was watching a video with me. This was very, very traumatic for him and for me. We were watching. We used to watch videos after I terminated treatment with him up in his house. He had a little office place where he had a computer. We'd go in there and watch the videos. So this time, he was looking at. He had a big screen there too, so he got a good shot of the videos. So in his office, so he was looking at one of those particular videos, and he said, "I don't recognize that person," meaning himself. I don't recognize him. He said, I'm not a person anymore. And that was terrible. I could see it building up, but not to that extreme. I think that's maybe a full-blown example of Alzheimer's, when you go to that sense of not recognizing. But he sobbed that time, and I cried with him. I kept resonating in my mind. How must that be for him? He doesn't recognize himself. So that means he doesn't recognize also his history, what he did in his life, and he didn't. That all faded out. Not everything, though. So I decided, since he was losing a lot of patients of his practice, and some continued to see him. Mary Lou, and a man named Damien flew from India to see him. Damien met me at a conference one time, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you Dr. Sehl?" And I said, "Yes." "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Damien. I'm a patient of Dr. Lucas." I said, "Oh, thanks for saying hello." So that week he came over to meet with me and Dr. Lucas, and I said, "Would you be amenable to being interviewed about your experience with Dr. Lucas?" And he said, "Sure." So I interviewed him that time, and imagine, it's a small world, right? How you pick somebody up in a conference and recognize them. That's why I like the videos, though, because they get around to different people, and it's nice. So anyway, Damien and Mary Lou and some students continued to drop in for a while, from time to time. Dan and the two Dans were in his class, but soon everything stopped. His classes, of course, stopped. So, but that was some horrible, but it was a terrible day with him there. So what I decided to do is I wanted to continue to see him. So I established between he and I asked him if he would like to do this. So I'd like to come and visit you, Dr. Lucas, if you are willing to, every Friday. So we called it Mark and Gerry's Day. So I would go over there and hang out. We would sometimes go out for walks, and we would walk down the street. And I was pretty gregarious, and so I would walk up to somebody on the street in a graceful way. I'd say, "By the way, could I introduce you to Dr. Lucas? He's a psychoanalyst that lives in the area." And most of the time, people were very, they could have a conversation with him, and he could have a conversation. He liked to talk to people. So we walk up a little ways and meet somebody else and introduce him just that way, and so he liked that. He was having a good time. I wanted him to have a good time. Life doesn't, and he had a family, that was with him in the house. But there was sometimes some conflicts, I think. So, although his son did come up and once in a while he would hang out with us and talk. His son, I think his name was David. So he came up and talked. But the two daughters, no, I didn't see. Yeah, so that was, so we would do different things. I took him over to Barney Greengrass, and that was a big restaurant, very, very popular on Amsterdam Avenue between Amsterdam between Amsterdam and Columbus. So we used to go there fairly frequently. He liked it very much. And also, one day I walked in and I told the wait staff, by the way, it's Dr. Lucas's birthday. I think they knew him there a little bit. So they all came out and sang, "Happy birthday, Dr. Lucas, happy birthday, Dr. Lucas, happy birthday." So anyway, he was so pepped up and pumped up about that. It wasn't his birthday, but that was irrelevant. So yeah, so sometimes we go for ice cream sodas afterwards. And he liked chocolate ice cream sodas. And chocolate cake, I would get down at this bakery called Patisserie Claude. They had this delicious seven-layer chocolate cake, and he loved that, so I'd bring it up to him, and he would chow that down. So there's something else coming up. I'm going to stop right now, but I have such fond memories of him. I cried for about a year and for 2 years. I mean, it was pretty hard in the beginning when he, after the morning here, but it was hard for me because I spent so much time with him. He was like a father figure to me. And he was a father figure to me. So I'm going to talk next time about what happened when he might have been made to go to a nursing home. And that was a family thing. And I'll tell you about what happened the next time I talk about Dr. Lucas and this unusual patient-therapist relationship. So I'm going to sign off for now. It just occurred to me. I walked into my office today in the building, and there was a box for me, and I knew what it was right off the bat. It was a box of chocolate-covered strawberries. This is the third year that this victim of sexual assault sent me this box as a memory in terms of the day that Dr. Lucas died. Every year she's on the same time, same as May 8th. So that was nice to get, nice memory too. Nice, and they're very delicious. So that's it for now. This is Mark Sehl. If you want to go to marksehl.com, you'll find out information about me. If you want to email me, if anybody out there knew Dr. Lucas, you could say hello. Dr. Robert Cuccioli. I have this, Cuccioli called about 2 months ago to speak to me. And I didn't know him. I'd never met him. But he said, by the way, I wanted to thank you for the therapy videos for myself and my colleagues because they liked to watch them and they were very, very important for them so they could have a memory of him and actually see him and listen to what he had to say. So he called in to say thank you. And if you're out there, by the way, Dr. Robert, you can, maybe we could have coffee sometime. Anybody, that goes for anybody who knew Dr. Lucas. It could be fun to reminisce and talk about him and also talk about what we've been doing too. So, if you like this talk or if you don't like it, just press the thumbs up button or the thumbs down button. And if you want to comment, if you have a Gmail account, I'll look it over and then put it on Friends of Therapy for the Heart webpage where I have people listed. So thanks again. I'm going to say goodbye right now. Bye-bye.